Welcome back here on Live Now from Fox, 8:45 on the East Coast and 5:45 on the West Coast. Do want to talk much more about this bomb cyclone that is impacting folks over in the Northwest. Now, we were going to have our Fox 13 Seattle team joining us to break down some of the damage like that on your screen that was seen over in the state of Washington. However, it does appear right now that they have lost their signal, but that kind of speaks to how serious of a situation this is right now. We're going to keep in touch with them as they get their signal back, and we'll make sure to bring you updates. But again, this is some of the video coming in out of that area. Gary and Bob Garden does have much more on what they've seen so far, with at least 2 deaths reported.
My feet were sinking. If it keeps going, people are going to be in trouble.
Folks across the Northwest continue cleaning up, but are bracing for more impacts. This after a bomb cyclone brought strong winds, heavy downpours, and even snow to several communities in Northern California, Washington State, and Oregon.
We haven't seen a storm like this in my 45 years living here.
The system began Tuesday, the Weather Prediction Center issuing excessive rainfall risks, with forecasters saying up to 16 inches of rain could fall in parts of Northern California and Southwest Oregon through Friday. It's elevating the risks for mudslides, more downed trees, and rising floodwaters.
Store is flooding a little bit from the rain, so we're just trying to block up the back door so we can save the space a bit.
Massive amounts of trees and power lines still litter roadways as many residents press on through power outages. Fallen trees are being blamed for at least 2 deaths so far in Washington State.
Trauma that people go through, even when they haven't lost a loved one, when you see your house in shambles and you don't know where to start and you've got young kids, it's nerve-wracking.
It's a war zone. Go up Newburgh Road, there are trees down, there are poles down.
Meanwhile, parts of the Sierra Nevada mountain range were under a winter storm watch, with roughly 15 inches of snow expected to be dumped. Local officials are warning of whiteout conditions and slick roads. Gary Baumgarten, Fox News.
All right, and we will have an expert with the National Weather Service over in Seattle joining us here in just about 45 minutes to break down the latest on the situation there with the bomb cyclone. Right now, I do want to head over to the Northwest. That is where we do have this bomb cyclone that has been responsible for at least 2 deaths so far, and we've seen a lot of damage left behind. This right here is coming in from one of our affiliates there. This is Fox 13 Seattle, as they have been covering this around the clock. But again, this is a look at some of the damage. I do want to talk more about the situation itself, so let's bring in Kirby Cook, Science and Operations Officer at National Weather Service in Seattle. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. I know you all have a lot going on there, so we definitely appreciate it.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, first off, can you explain to me overall what a bomb cyclone even is and how it differs from maybe your average storm or even hurricane?
You know, it's an extratropical cyclone, which means it occurs at higher latitudes, and it's a rapidly deepening storm system, a rapidly strengthening storm system. By definition, it's termed a bomb cyclone if it deepens by 24 millibars in 24 hours. And this one actually deepened far more than that. I think we saw a 64 millibar drop in surface pressure associated with this storm. So it far exceeded the definition of bomb cyclone. And it does operate in very similar ways, in some ways very differently than hurricanes, but you can think of it as a rapidly intensifying extratropical cyclone like a hurricane, a very strong storm system.
How often do you see these, and is there a specific time of year when they really do form?
You know, they're not uncommon, but we don't see them a lot. So, I mean, it's a very strong storm system. This one got down to about, I believe the estimated central pressure for this was 942 millibars, which is a really, really strong storm system. It stayed well offshore, which was a big mitigating factor. It was well over 100 nautical miles offshore, and we still had significant impacts, as you're showing on the screen here. We don't get them very often. They're fairly rare, but they aren't uncommon in the wintertime, again, in the northern latitudes, especially over the ocean.
As far as some of the damage, we're looking at it on your screen right there. This is coming from our Fox 13 Seattle team. Can you kind of explain the impacts overall and what you tend to see with these? You kind of discussed it already, but you can see trees are down, power poles are down. Is that, I guess, fairly standard?
You know, any windstorm here in the Northwest, the primary impact is to the trees. We have a lot of trees, and that usually is driving, unfortunately, the fatalities and a lot of the property damage and power outages. This storm was unique because it drove easterly winds, which is an unusual direction for us. For most of Western Washington, when we get strong windstorms, the winds are usually out of the south or maybe the north, depending on where you're at. But very rarely do we get these easterly winds. And the trees are not, they're a little more vulnerable to easterly winds. They're used to the southerly winds, and so they're a little more resilient to those kind of wind directions. And so when we get an unusual wind direction, we tend to see more impacts, especially with the trees because of that. And so that drove a lot of the significant impacts, was the unusual wind direction.
Any further impacts that are expected from this system?
Well, we do have another storm system that's going to be moving in overnight tonight and tomorrow, and it will also produce some easterly winds. We have a wind advisory out. This storm system is weaker than the first storm system, but it's going to take a similar track. It's going to move kind of up into our offshore waters, and not as strong. It will remain offshore, but we're going to have another round of easterly winds in the same area where we saw the significant impacts earlier in this week. So we're watching that just because it's on the heels of this very strong storm system.
All right, Kirby Cook, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and help break down everything about this system here. Is there anything else that you want to add about this, as so many people now are talking about this bomb cyclone? That's what they hear. It catches their attention. So anything else you want to add?
You know, other than just folks should pay attention to the forecast as always and use it to make good decisions.
That's always good advice. All right, thank you again. Have a good rest of your day, and please stay safe.
Thank you. Take care.